Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for John Wick Chapter 4. Of course, there will be spoilers in the second half as the title says, but I'll let you guys know when we get to that. And getting right to it, it was fun. It was a great action film. It was just great. Like it was a great action film. Like it's insane how 4 movies in, they find ways to just up the ante. Like they have really long action sequences. They have all the film action sequences are crazy throughout like this entire franchise, but in this there's just stuff they do where it's like either it's the length of the fight, it's the location of the fight, it's the cinematography, like the way they actually film the specific fight sequence, or at least a portion of it. Like there's always something in this where it's like, oh, that's something they haven't really done before in the other movies. So you realize like, okay, I haven't even seen the movies in quite a while, and I was like, they didn't do that in the other ones. Like either it was just, like I said, sequences that are super long and you actually like watch John kind of go through this fight and actually get tired, or it'll just be the cinematography. Like I think there's almost a clip of it, or almost a clip, there is a clip of it in the trailer where they show for like half a second like the top down angle that lasts for a decent chunk of time during that sequence, and it's really, really cool. Like visually, it's a fantastic sequence, especially with what they do with the actual weapon that he has. It's the perfect weapon and the perfect like viewing angle for the way they do that action. Absolutely amazing. So I think that'll probably end up being one of that might end up being, like, out of all the action sequences, as great as they are, I think just for how that looks visually, especially for nerds like me, because it straight up looks like a top-down video game, I think that's going to end up being like the #1 highlight as far as the action sequences throughout this film. I think that's going to ultimately end up being like the most popular one, just because the visuals for it, and once again that combination of like, this looks like a video game. It was like a twin stick shooter sort of moment, or Hotline Miami for anyone who doesn't know what a twin stick shooter is. But absolutely love the action in it. I like the characters pretty much are just the characters that return. The only new characters are like some of the random villains. Really the villains are always the new characters. The heroes are typically always the same. So we got some new villains in. Bill Skarsgård plays the main antagonist. He's really great. He is basically, for anyone who actually remembers some of the villains from the other movie, in the second movie, they had like the rich kid who everyone hated. He was like the spoiled little rich kid, and he was like, like, my dad has a bunch of power and I can do whatever I want. Bill Skarsgård character is like that level of douchebag, but he clearly earned his position. He wasn't like just the kid who got born into it. You could tell that it was like, okay, he actually earned his position, but he's still really weak. Like you could still tell he was in that same position as the rich kid, where it's like, I can say and do whatever I want because I'm already at the top. But like, don't physically challenge me though, because I'd probably lose. But I can say what I want because you can't touch me at this point. But if anybody could challenge that dude at any point, he's not the one. Like he's not the guy who could handle the actual assassin work they do. He did at some point. Somehow he made it to the top, but it's like, clearly he's not as skilled as everybody else. Like that's clearly the position he's in. He can talk a lot, but he can't do a lot. So that's why he's safe, is he can say stuff and people do it. So you can tell he's that sort of character. He's the guy who's just in all the amazing outfits throughout the entire film. Like he's just changing outfits. He's doing the crazy rich guy stuff where it's like, I'm going to go to a gallery. I'm just going to go sit. We're going to clear out the whole museum, and I'll just look at some art pieces by myself because I just want to stare at an art piece and have like an espresso machine next to me. Like weird stuff like that, like just the crazy, evil, super villain rich guy stuff. Like he does that throughout this movie. Just weird things where it's like, this would be a whole gala, like hundreds of people would be here to enjoy this moment. And it's like, it's just for me. That's that character. So I like the character that he played for sure. We have, of course, Donnie Yen, amazing. And I'll get to that, especially in spoilers, I'll get to more of that, but he's great. Donnie Yen's amazing. So I was just like, Donnie Yen's in it. He's got a sword, which, hey, that's all me. I love that stuff. And he's amazing. That's all there is to it. He's amazing. His character is actually pretty funny. I was surprised how comedic he actually was. He reminded me a lot of like, it felt very old school martial arts movie with the way his character acted, and he wasn't ultra serious and stuff, which is kind of the role of a lot of the villains in the John Wick films. Like they're all just assassins and everyone's very, very serious. And I felt he was the first character that came in from the very beginning. He was just like, yeah, he's just the guy who's like very, loose with it, but it's like, when the skills have to come into play, don't F with this guy, because he's basically Daredevil. He's a blind character, but he be doing stuff that's impossible. And so does John Wick, by the way. This movie was like, if this was Captain America 4, the stuff John does in it, I was like, oh yeah, super soldier, that makes a lot of sense. The Winter Soldier's doing this. Like, of course, this is a human being. Impossible. This was the one that went full comic book. I loved it personally, but I'm like, this 100% was the one where I'm like, He's dead. He's dead there. Oh yeah, he died there for sure. He did that for like 15 minutes. It felt like he should have had a heart attack. Like, there's the end action sequence that's really long. I legit felt like he's gone through so much. He's gone through a super long action sequence. Like, his heart doesn't have a break. I'm like, if he died, if the movie ended and John died, I would have been like, yeah, he had a heart attack. That makes perfect sense. But like, it would have been like a legit ending, because I'm like, this dude does so much stuff in this movie. He gets hit so much by people, technically by guns, because they do the thing where like the suit's bulletproof. They up that to 1,000,000. Everybody does that in this. Like, that was kind of his thing in, like, I think the first 3 movies they did that, and that was like his thing. This movie kicks off and it's like, here's how we up the ante. Here's how we make this a video game. You're dealing with the people at the very top. Everybody has the most expensive suits, so everybody's just like, I'm bulletproof. Like, there's literally people that come in, like the freaking SWAT team that comes in, and they're armored up and they can just block bullets like Wonder Woman. They're just like boom, 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 block. Like, it's insane. The first like beginning moment where it's just absolute chaos and a buttload of people are fighting, there it's just left and right. People are just like boom, blocking bullets, and I'm like, this junk is crazy. Like, everybody's just like, I'm just gonna put my head up. I could block bullets. It's so wild. But I'm just watching, I'm like, this is how you make it where you can keep shooting people. And of course they ignore all the physics behind it until they don't. Because sometimes it's like, oh, he shot that person. Obviously they aren't hurt, but it's like, oh man, I got hit by a bullet. That knocked me back a little bit. And then there's other parts, because of course there's people in just, it's technically like super magic Kevlar suits, but they'll just do this real fast and then it's like boom, and I'm back to fighting. So sometimes they do it where they get affected by the bullets, and then there's other times they don't. But I'm just like, I don't care. There's like 1,000,000. There has to, like, if they track the amount of bullets shot in this, it has to be like 1,000,000. It's insane the amount of people that just shoot, and then like they go through a sequence where they're just shooting and shooting and shooting, but everybody's like bulletproof. It's ridiculous, but it's so fun to watch. It's so well done. So it's a great action movie. Go watch it. If you've seen the other 3, you're basically just doing yourself a disservice by not seeing this one. So you have to go see it, and that's about it. Keanu does talk in this, and I gotta say, I never had an issue with him acting. I was always fine. Whoa, and all that crap, I was fine. I've always been fine with Keanu. This was the one where I was like, how is this bad to me? And he's done 3 other movies, not once, maybe like a line here and there I may have thought of was like, so. Never brought it up in any of my reviews, but in this, I have to say, there's like probably more than half his lines. And I also think he speaks the least in this than he ever has in the other 3 movies, which is weird. But he'll have lines and it could literally be one word. Most of them are one sentence. And it's just like, that wasn't good. I personally just like, that didn't sound convincing. That did not sound right. That they should have done another take. Just saying. I feel like I have to mention it because it never affected me before, and this was, the first time where I was like, yeah, that was bad. That was kind of bad acting. Action wise, phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. But dialogue wise, only for Keanu. Everybody else is just great, great acting and stuff like that. Donnie Yen's character has a couple lines that honestly I couldn't tell what he was saying, because he would say his character is just like he's the silly, like, sort of fun character. So there are moments where it'll be like silent and he'll just randomly like throw out the line where it was just like, he'll start the conversation, but it'll be like one sentence. And I was like, my brain almost wasn't ready to hear dialogue, and he'll just say something and it'll be 2 words. And I'm like, I missed what he just said, because I thought they were just gonna like cut to another scene of characters, and then it'll just be like, bleh. And I was like, oh snap, I missed that. I missed those 2 words because he said it like that, and my brain wasn't ready to like see dialogue, because it'll just be like right in the middle of nothing and he'll just say a line, and it's like, that's how he will start conversations. And I was like, oh, that's his character. That's like just how that character speaks. But it catches me off guard like every time it happens. I think it happens like maybe 3 or 4 times, and every time he does it, it'll just be like 2 quick words, and that's how he's like jumping into the conversation to start it. And it's almost like the way he'll do it is like he'll be giving information, or he'll almost be like answering a question that someone didn't ask yet, and that's why it'll be so fast. And then I'll be like, what did he just say? I didn't get what he said. But then of course they have the rest of the conversation. I'm like, I'll get the context, but technically there are a couple lines of his that were just like boom, and I missed them because I was just like, crap, he hit me out of nowhere with dialogue that I was not anticipating. But I love all the characters. I love what they do with the villains. I love what they do with technically the heroes. It's mostly just John, but I like what they did throughout the film as far as the action. Of course, like that's the number one thing, and they do not disappoint. absolutely. I would still say that 3 was probably my favorite. It might go 3, 4, 1, and then 2. It's been a minute since I've watched the other 3 films. Unfortunately, they took them off of HBO Max, which I think is the stupidest thing ever. Like, with the movie coming out, they took the other 3 movies off, I think like last month or something. And I'm like, that has got to be, I mean, HBO Max has been taking everything off like just at random too. So they've been doing a lot of dumb stuff, but I'm like, that has got to be one of the stupidest things you could do when the 4th film of just a full, it's not summer, but you know, it's a blockbuster film. Like, it is 100%. People go to see this movie not to be like a tour de force. It's just, what is one of the coolest action things you can possibly see right now? And you spend money to just be like, let me see some amazing action. And then like, what if we took the whole trilogy off and just didn't have people be able to watch it? It's so stupid. You know, they probably lost rights or whatever, but I'm like, they should have paid to keep those on there, because you got the 4th movie. Now is when people are gonna be like, hey, where can we stream those? So I don't know where they are right now, but I didn't end up getting to watch them before they took them off. Still think that was stupid, but they've been doing a lot of dumb stuff lately. But I don't remember every single thing, you know, from the last 3 films, but I remember really loving the 3rd movie. I felt like the 3rd movie was the perfect blend of story and action. And probably because at that point in the story, it was literally, the whole thing was everyone's trying to kill him, which is technically what they do in this movie as well. But it was more direct. Like, this is specifically why he's being chased, because he killed this dude's kid, and 100% he is excommunicado. How does he not get that? You know, how does he get himself free again? And it was just simpler. And the action, I thought, was just really well done. They also did a lot of, I feel like they did more like samurai / ninja stuff, and so admittedly super duper bias, I think that's a part of why I like the last movie a little bit more, but still love the action in this. Like, they do go to Japan again, and it's one of my favorite moments. So I love everything they do action wise, 100% beginning to end. Like, it's so well done. So definitely check out the movie. Full on spoilers at this point, so if you have not seen it, definitely go check it out, because there's some insane spoilers to really talk about in this one for sure, that are surprising spoilers. So definitely go check out the movie for sure, and let me know what you guys think. Also, there's a Warriors reference, which we're in spoilers. There's a Warriors reference. I was so happy to see that. I knew it was in the trailer, and that made me super happy, because I'm a huge fan of the Warriors. I did not expect them to actually play the song. That made me really happy too. I was like, they actually played, you know, I don't know the title, but you know, Nowhere to Run to, Nowhere to Hide. I was like, they played the song too. Like, the reference was so good, and I don't know who put that in there, but I love that person, because I was like, they have a Warriors reference in a John Wick film, and it was so good. I was really happy about that. And I like that whole sequence where he would get to, it was a very video game, of course. He was like, here's this part of the game, and then he beats that little chunk of the level, and then he goes on to the next chunk of the level, and they change the song, and they kept changing the song as he was going through, and he goes through the building. They do a full-on top-down twin stick shooter moment where it looks like Hotline Miami. He has the Dragon's Breath shotgun, so of course visually it's absolutely phenomenal. Loved all of that. And then they do the stairs, and it's like, I think they even say it's like 222 steps. So we've gone through the first little sequence where he took some people out. Then it was the crazy sequence where he's in the famous roundabout, and there's people getting hit by cars and this and that. Those people suck, by the way. The scene where he's spinning around them in the car over and over, I was like, these people suck, because there's no reason he should have lived through that one either. But he has to survive. That's what he does, until he doesn't. But loved everything they did with that as they were going through, you know, going through the house and everything, and then the stairs, and he's taking all these people down. And that was the sequence, I think, that and the first big scene when he's in Japan and they fight in that room with like the lights and the weird art, like just the way it was set, it was very weird but very cool looking. Those are the 2 scenes where it's like he fought for a very long time, and you can just see by the end, like, this dude's tired. This man is just really tired. And then they have the greatest comedic non-comedy stair scene I think I've ever experienced, where he falls down almost 222 steps, and like the dude kicks him, and he goes down, and he tumbles and he tumbles and he tumbles, and like you can see that the dude just like keeps rolling, because you can easily stop yourself when it gets flat, but he keeps just rolling. Then the guy comes down, and then he gets him again, and he's just rolling. And that's this time, it like at first it was like he was coming towards the camera, so it felt different. And then when he's just going away, and he's just getting smaller and smaller, and he's just like just rolling down the stairs. It was funny, but I was like, okay, this is how this is happening, and it's just ridiculous and over the top, and it was just really good. And then of course Donnie Yen comes in and is like, hey, I kind of need you to get up those stairs, basically, so I can kill you to save my daughter. It's how it is. It's family. And then they go up, and then they team up, and then they're just taking people out left and right once again. I love how Daniel uses his sword, by the way, where it's like he'll do like these really quick stabs, like when he fought his buddy Koji, and I wish I could remember the actor's name because he's always like the Japanese samurai guy that they always go to for any movie that takes place in Japan involving the Yakuza or anything Japanese samurai based when it's done in the US, because he's good at it, admittedly, so that's probably why they go to him all the effing time. But that's like always his role in movies like this. But when they were fighting and he gets him and he does like that really quick jab, he does it, oddly enough, with it being more like a katana, he does a lot of like rapier stuff, like fencing, where it's just like boom, and he'll do like these quick little jabs, and the way he'll like kill people on the ground instead of, you know, shooting them like the double tap, he'll just like basically like pricking people with like a toothpick is how it felt. And even the sound effect for it would just be like, it was like super quick, but he would do like these quick like pincer moves, and I love that. I was like, that's really cool. You don't ever see that. That's like just not a thing that you see, unless it's actually like a fencing blade. So I thought that was really cool the way that they did that with his style of character, because of course he's Donnie Yen, so he could do like a million different things. He could kick and punch and all this stuff, but they're like, what if we did the blind samurai move though? And it's like, I'm not gonna hate that, and I certainly didn't. So he was great. Them going up the stairs was just wild. Love the ending, of course, where they go through and they do the duel, and then they have like the little line of dialogue, and it was like, huh, you know, John didn't end up shooting. And then of course when the dude stops him, I was like, son of a bitch. And then of course Winston even says, like, you know, he calls him an arrogant asshole or something. He's like, he didn't shoot, and he still had time to totally shoot John, but it, you know, it's the movie. Like, there are a million times, honestly, that was something I did notice as well. There are a bunch of times I noticed in this where they were doing wide shots, and I was like, they had time to shoot him. There are people, like, for one, people either missing a bunch, like when he was spinning around them, and I was like, he totally should have been shot at some point, and he was just hitting everybody. But there are a lot of moments where it was like, okay, you're in the background, you can shoot this dude, you can shoot at him. They do have people shoot like enough, I would say, but it's hard not to notice it. Like there's so many people that he fights. When he fought the dude, the SWAT people that came in with like the Oni mask and stuff, I'm just hitting my mic like crazy today. But he was fighting all of them, and there's definitely parts. It was specifically when he first fought two people, and there was the one dude on the drum, and he was like hitting him against the drum, then he was fighting the other dude, and the guy in the background just had to be like this, like, oh god, like his head was just hurting really bad. And I was like, I hate when they have to do that, but I understood why they had to do it. But I was like, man, I wish that they changed it up a little bit, because there was a couple of moments in that, especially because they all have to be like half knocked out and just, you know, really dizzy, because the whole point of their characters was like they're fully, you know, suited up. So it was just like right under the neck was pretty much their only weak point. And it was like, ah, man, they got to be real dizzy, you know. And it was just like, it just kind of, it looked fake. I mean, that's the only real way I feel like I can put it, where it was like, I felt like they were just like kind of fumbling over themselves and stuff, and it just looked a little weird. Especially, I think the drum thing really stood out, because the person had to like be really weird and like dizzy and offset, but also stand up straight, because they had to be like right next to the drum. So it just made it extra obvious, because they couldn't just like fall to the ground and be like trying to get their balance. They had to like stand up, but also just be like this. It was obviously a lot more than that. They were much better acting than I was just now, but it definitely felt like, okay, there's, you know, it's just one of those moments. Not as bad as like the Batman thing, where the dude was just in the background and he just was like, ah, I fell. It wasn't that bad, but it was definitely like, oh, it just, after a while, it's like you're doing so much over here that the other person just looks weird, being like kind of dizzy and off in the background. So it's hard not to get past some of that stuff, because they do so much action. I completely understand why those moments are there. But it's hard not to notice, for sure, especially because I like action so much. I definitely notice that sort of stuff when it, you know, when it pops up. But it doesn't mean any of the action was bad to me. Still absolutely loved it. I love that sequence. Like, that was a long scene where he's fighting the dudes in the armor, and then that just, he's in that room for like 10 straight minutes. It felt like it was forever, and in a good way too. Like, before Donnie Yen even shows up, that felt like 5 straight minutes of one action scene, and I was like, this is crazy. And I loved every single second of it. And he's just like getting tired, and then he busts out the nunchucks and like he's just like hitting people and stuff, and then he would like spin them and just hang them on his neck. And I'm like, this is sweet, this is fun. And he's just getting tired, and it's like, you know, take somebody out here, take somebody out there, let me get like half a break, here's some more people, take them all down, then this the last dude, and it's like, let me just like wind up to this and then do like a, you know, a final hit. Donnie Yen had like a really cool moment. I think it was during that scene, or maybe it was somewhere else. I think it was during the kitchen sequence, where he like beat up the one dude and he was hitting him with like the flurry punches, and then he hits him in the stomach, and then he does like a straight up wind up punch, and it was just very comedic and stuff, but that was his character, so it fit really well. And he just hits him with the uppercut, and I was like, this is cool. Like, it was over the top, and he like winds his hand up for no good reason, and just like boom. I was like, it's silly, but it was really fun. And I, especially with his character specifically, it made perfect sense. So I definitely enjoyed that. But all the way through, loved the action. Was very shocked that he died at the end. And I thought it was good. In a way, they were like kind of ambiguous, but I'm like, he definitely died. But then when Lawrence Fishburne's character was like, think he's in heaven or hell, and then Winston looks at him, he's like, who knows? And it was just like, I think he was being serious, just kind of not answering the question. But at the same time, when he said that, I was like, is he not actually dead? But I'm pretty sure he's dead and gone, and that's pretty much it. But I like the way it was done. I thought it was really cool. Clancy Brown was in this. Clancy Brown was just cool. So that was surprising to see him, and he was just the guy where it's like he was just very official about everything, and it was just like, all right, this is what it is, this is what it's gonna be, and that's it. And I love the scene where they set up the rules, and so they have all the cards laid out, and so it's like, all right, the person who gets challenged gets to say like what time it is first and stuff like that, and you flip it, and if your number's higher, you get your choice. And I was like, that's actually a really cool idea. And I love that they did it where he was like, we'll do it at sunrise, and then John was like, we'll do it right now, and then his number was lower, and I was like, that's actually really funny. He was like, I'm gonna kill you now, and I want to be done, I want to be out of this. So I thought that was a funny little scene there. Just when he said it really fast, like now. And it's like, okay, I'll kill you later, basically. But I really like how all of that stuff was handled. The action was amazing, despite the fact that he totally should have died. He should have died in the club when he fell on that beam. He should have died after that when he jumped out the window and then hit the car and dented the car in and fell on his back. And I'm like, I know the whole point of the Kevlar is it's super magic Kevlar. Like, they're just doing this and they're blocking bullets all day long. I understand. But he hit his back after dropping like 2 or 3 stories on a truck. And he hurt his back earlier. He should have been dead a million times over in this. But it was amazing. It doesn't matter. It was amazing. So absolutely loved it. Who knows what we should expect next? I mean, with the post-credit sequence, they had Akira go after Donnie Yen's character, go after Kane when he was going to see his daughter. I don't know if she actually killed him. Him doing this whole daredevil thing throughout the entire movie where it was like he's tapping on stuff, but I'm like, dude is like shooting people from 20 feet away. I don't know why they're trying to keep like the realism going where it's like, oh, he has to tap to see where he's going. I'm like, the dude is shooting people. He's dodging bullets. Like, him tapping is just like, that's the weirdest. Like, we gotta make sure he's a blind guy. He has to tap for what? Like, he might as well jump through windows like John. Like, it didn't, I don't know. It was kind of funny going through the movie, and I'm like, why is he tapping on the ground? Like they would like half do it where he has to know like where stuff is ending and things like that. I was like, okay, sure. But once again, he's shooting people and dodging bullets. And like, I think in the trailer, they had it where he actually like deflected some bullets. I don't think they actually put that sequence in, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they were fighting like crazy, so I don't remember. But I don't think he actually does that where he straight up like deflects the bullets, because that was when I saw it in the trailer, I was like, oh, they're going like full comic book, which they definitely did. But I don't think he actually ends up blocking the bullets or keeping that little sequence there in the main film. So canonically speaking, he didn't really block those bullets with a blade, which would have been sick, but also like just about impossible. And even if you do that, the bullets won't like bounce off. Like, the bullet would just split and it would have killed him anyway, because that's how that really works. When people do that in real life, if you actually cut a bullet, it'll just split and then it'll just hit you in 2 parts instead of 1 part, because that's what would happen. It would just do this, and that's just real life. If you ever have the random opportunity to cut an effing bullet anyway, like, I don't know when you would do that. The only time I've ever seen it was literally a test to see if a katana could cut a bullet, and that's the only reason that happened. In real life, it doesn't matter, because you're either going to be shot or you'll split it and you'll technically be shot twice. It's irrelevant. But very cool. Love the action, love the characters. I loved how funny he was as well, and like kind of how the story was done with his character and with them being old friends, even with Koji's character. So all of that stuff, I was like, this is really well done. I like how they handled that, and it's very small, like adding that little bit of emotion and depth to not only John's character, but these new characters that are introduced as his friends, and how all 3 of them were friends, to each other, and how Donnie Yen's character, when he kills his buddy, he's sad, and he does like the thing where he like, that's his thing, to like, he's for him crying instead of him actually crying. It was him like kind of wiping his nose, because he does that at the end after everything's all said and done, and he's free and his daughter's free, and it's like John kind of let him shoot him so that they could all have that moment, and everything's done. So I wish they touched on that like a little bit harder. I wish he had like more of an emotion towards actually having to kill his buddy. It was always like, I gotta go for my, I gotta do it for my daughter, which makes perfect sense. But I wish it just hit a little harder, where it was like, it was still tougher for him to do it, considering, you know, especially his character where he was kind of lazy about it, it would have actually fit perfectly if he was more emotional compared to all the other characters that we've seen, where it's like, I hate that I have to do this, but it's my daughter versus my friends. So I kind of wish that they did that, like just a little bit harder. I wish they hit on that for his character, but it was still really well done. So love the action, love what they did. All in all, it was good. We'll see what happens with the Continental series. I do believe that is a thing that they're going to keep up with. So I'm excited for that. And who knows, maybe we'll get a spinoff with Mr. Nobody. He seemed really cool. I love his, he had a repeater, 100%. Yeah, if you got a repeater, I want to see what you can do. So that was great. He's like a crazy, his was definitely like a repeater mixed with a shotgun, because he was shooting people. I mean, it's a repeater anyway. But when he would shoot people, it felt like the impact that they took was like an up close shotgun shell, because they were, it's action movies, so I felt like they would be flying away, and I'm like, it's a repeater and stuff, but all the weapons are like insanely powerful. Like that's the point. In action movies, everything's like 10 times stronger than it is in real life, so it's like, it is what it is. But it was a cool gun, and seeing him constantly put it together where he could shoot super far, even though it seems shorter than a normal repeater rifle. Once again, modern tech and just movie tech as well, extra upgrades, but super cool. Definitely enjoyed it. So we'll see what happens next. We'll see what they do spin-off wise, TV show wise, all this stuff. But he's gone. I would assume this is the final film, but definitely well done. And of course, before I finish this out, I do have to mention Lance Reddick. I wish I mentioned that in the non-spoiler part of this, but it was nice to see after the post-credit sequence, they were actually able to do like an in memoriam to him. I was happy to see that, just because considering how recently he passed, I didn't think they were going to even be able to pull that one off. So I was actually really happy to see that after the post-credit sequence, where they put like, in loving memory of Lance Reddick. So that was very cool to see. I just didn't think they could do it. In my head, it's still film reels that get like sent to the movie theaters, but it's all digital now, so they could probably just be like, here's basically like video games, here's like just an update to it, here's a patch for an extra sequence, and they just send that over the internet or whatever they do. I still don't know how movies actually get to theaters, especially now that they're digital, but I would assume that's how it is. It's basically just like really secure emails, like here you go, here's the movie. But it was nice to see that, and very surprising that with his death, like he dies in the film as well, and I'm sure that had to affect them a lot, having to see that scene done at the premiere and stuff, because I was like, wow, I was not expecting that to be what happens to his character, of course. And it was just like, ooh, that is like unfortunately fitting, just the way it happened. It was just like, oh, that is like just not what you would expect, and of course not what you want. But it was nice to see him, the little bit that we got to see him in the film. And of course I was hoping that he'd actually have more, honestly, because I do like his character, especially because he's more interactive on the more action side of things compared to like the character of Winston, who was like the leader of the manager of the Continental. So I do wish we got to see a bit more of him, and he was always more friendly with John, as where Winston was more, more of a father figure, where it's like very strict, like this is how things are, and you can't keep doing this, John. This is how things are going to end up being, which this movie is 100%, consequences. They talk about it a lot. This is the movie of John's consequences from 1, 2, and 3, being like, you keep killing everybody, and that keeps getting all these people killed who are totally innocent, and they're just your friend, and that's why people keep getting killed off. It's kind of, it's kind of your fault, dude. But I like the movie all the way through. So we'll see what happens next with the future of the franchise. Of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about this one. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And of course, what happened to Common? He never came back from that second movie. 3, I was waiting for him. This movie, I was waiting for him. I was like, is he going to come back? Is he going to be like, you put that pencil in my chest and now I'm back? And he just didn't come back. And I was like, dang. And that was like literally the only single thread that they actually made in these movies that was like a subplot that was supposed to come back, and it just didn't. And I'm like, God, that's gonna bother me forever, because I'm like really OCD about like continuity and just seeing like sublines, subplot lines come back in later films, and he just doesn't come back. And I'm like, man, that's gonna be in my head forever, where I'm just like, they didn't get to do that common storyline. But aside from that, love the franchise. We'll see what happens going forward, but please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.